In this video, we are going to be looking at type conversion in Python. So let's get started. So I'm going to give it the input. So this is a built-in function in Python that we use when we expect to get data from a user, or we expect to get data in this terminal window right here, or you can call it a tag. You're going to see that in action. So by default, it takes a string. So we are going to give it a string. So let's use something like X, and then let's put it like this. Let's wrap it, or let's put it in a variable called X also. So let's print this so you can see the label I'm talking about. So we're going to print X. So look at this. Let me just say okay. So you see this is just like a tag or a label to this data we are giving it. So let's look at some things. So let's take, for example, we want to do something like this. We want to say X. Okay, so X plus 4. Let's see what's going to happen. So Python 3 app.py. So if I give it 3, so look at this. Can only concatenate string, not int. So why do we have this problem? Because in Python, you can only concatenate objects of the same type. In other words, you can concatenate string with string and int with int. So how do we then solve this problem? And by the way, I want you to know this. So if you run this program, so at runtime, this is what Python sees. It sees something like this: 3 plus 4. And these are two different types. So this is a string and this is an integer. Even if you have 3 and 3, I tell you these are two different types. So how do we solve this problem? Well, in Python, we have a few built-in functions for type conversion. We have integer, we have float, we have string, and we have bool. So we call it string or str, whatever you want to call it. So in this case, what we need to do, because X by default is a string, you can also look at the type. Let's look at this in action. So we can look at type of X. So let me comment this one out so it doesn't disturb us. So we can look at type of X. So you can see it belongs to a class string. And we're going to be looking at classes in details later in the course. So it belongs to a class string. So you can see this. So I just wanted to show you. And this is also another built-in function. So let me comment this back. So now what we'll do is that, so we convert this type also to an integer. So if we convert it to an integer, then now this can work. So I'm going to take this off, or I'm going to comment this out. So I'm going to run Python 3 app.py. So I can give it 3. Okay, so why this isn't working is because I am still printing X. So I'm going to give you Y now. So we print Y. So let's run Python 3 app.py. So I'm going to give it 3. Beautiful. So we can see 3 plus 4 equals to 7. So this is how you can convert a type. So they are now of the same type, and now you can concatenate. But let me also show you another scenario. So let's say we want to use a multiplication sign here. So let's see what we are going to have. So let's multiply. We're going to give it 3. So look at this. We get 3 4 times. So if you use the multiplication sign and you are concatenating with an integer like this, it is going to multiply that string by the number that you have here, and it's going to appear here. So even if you have 5, this is going to happen 4 times. So you get 5 4 times. So there are a lot of other scenarios that we can look at. You can also convert directly from this place. So we can convert this to an integer. So if you run now, if you put this, is going to walk straight up. So let's look at this, because this is already an integer and you are converting this data you expect to get here to an integer. So let's try something else. So if you give it something like 3, so let's run python 3 app.py. Let me give it 3. You have 3 multiplied by 4, it is 12. Because by default, he expects to get a string, and then now we've converted this type to an integer. So it becomes an integer, and then he evaluates this expression. So that is it on that scenario. So to make this even clearer, so we can print the value of x and value of y. So you can see that you have 2 different values. So you remember the formatted string. So I can give a value of x. So I can say, first of all, x is x. So that is this variable right here. So and we can say y is y. So let's look at that. So we can, the value of this variable is going to be provided here, and the value of this variable is going to be provided here. So python 3 app.py. So 3, you can see this. So x is 3, y is 12. So we have seen all these built-in functions that we use to convert data into integer, float, string, and boolean. So but let's look at this boolean. You can always try this float on your own, but there's something I want to show you about booleans. So there are values that in Python generally we consider them as truthy and falsy values. Take for example, 0 is a falsy value. Okay, we have, even if it's 0.0, this is a falsy value. So if we have an empty list like this is also a falsy value. So we are going to know more about list later in the course. If you have an empty set like this is also a falsy value. If you have an empty tuple like this, it's also a falsy value. And if you have an empty string like this, is also a falsy value. So let's look at this. Look at what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take these ones off. So look at this. So I'm going to print bool. So let's look at this. So first of all, so this is, so look at bool 0. So print this. Let's look at what it gives us in the terminal. So we have false. So if you use 0.0, we also have false. And if you try the rest, so let me give you, so let's look at, for an empty set for example, so we also have false. So anything outside of this is true. And we also have a type that we call none. So you're going to see this later in the course. None is an object in Python, and it is the absence of a value. So if you look at this type, if you look at this none too, I'm going to see this, that it is a falsy value. But anything outside of these ones is a truthy value. For example, if I use 1, this is a truthy value. So you can see true. Even if I use a string that has some values inside, or characters, or alphabets if you like, so you can see this, it is true. So anything outside of these values that you have right here is a truthy value in Python. These are falsy values. So that is it on type conversion in Python. And don't worry about this concept of lists, of tuples, of sets. These are non-primitive types in Python. We are going to see them later in the course.